welcome back to Phoenix Rising, and today is Thoughtful Thursday. So again, it's about talking about opening up, something to do with living with chronic illness. Rosa's humping a toy in the background. It's a pizza. Anyway, got distracted. So it's about talking, opening up about living with chronic illness, and just like a little bit of sharing what I've gone through and if there's anything that I can do to help other people. So this week's Thoughtful Thursday topic is going to be about my hip pain, which I have struggled with ever since receiving my diagnosis of hypermobility, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And I just wanted to share really sort of the things that have happened, what's worked well, what hasn't worked well. So come along with me and Rosa, and I will fill you in. So my hip pain progressively started to get worse when I got into my early 20s, sort of late teens, early 20s. And I used to get like a catching sensation, like a mechanical, like if I moved my hip in a certain way, I felt like it used to be really painful and it almost like nerve pain. But then also not only that, the catching sensation, but it sometimes used to sublux and not feel like it was in the right place. So then when I tried to walk on it, it was really painful. That used to happen quite a lot. It still does, but that's kind of what triggered it. So originally, that was obviously shared with rheumatologists. It was shared with my GP, and I had lots of physio. And from a consultant point of view, that was when I was told that we didn't need to look into it because it's just to do with my condition, and I've just got to live with it basically. And GP didn't want to refer me on for a second opinion or an orthopedic opinion, and it was the physiotherapist that advocated for that. So very grateful for her, and she did. And she put me in touch with a fantastic consultant who I briefly talked about before. And like I said, I won't name him. But I think the most important thing I've learned around this condition and advocating for yourself is, we don't know all the answers. It's a really challenging condition to manage as a patient, but also to manage as a health professional. I acknowledge that it's quite challenging. I don't think we know absolutely everything. I don't think we know all the comorbidities, and I don't think we know the full extent of how it affects people individually. But what I will say is this orthopedic surgeon said to me, if there's something that I can do to help, I will figure it out. You will not leave this office without me making sure that I've done everything that I possibly can. And that was the first time that anybody had really said that to me. So I had a lot of confidence in what he was going to do and how he was going to support. So, because he looked normal and everything looks normal, he was like, we're going to do hip arthroscopy, which we did. And so I've had under his care 3 hip arthroscopies. And I did get some relief from some of the interventions that he did when I had those surgeries. The last time I had a surgery, the recovery seemed to be a lot worse. I seemed to take a lot longer to recover, which is not uncommon for people with, this kind of condition. I also had some nerve damage, and I think that was challenging as well, because I was concerned that I wouldn't, I had some numbness and I wouldn't get that sensation back. And the hip arthroscopies, although I felt like mentally thankful that I was listened to and that there was options, I think now looking back on it, I don't think that I fully physically I've benefited from those surgeries, because the challenging thing with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and hypermobility Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is that the likelihood of the reason why you went in for the surgery in the first place, the likelihood of that reoccurring is high. And I feel like my symptoms come back every single time I've had a hip surgery. I don't think there's anything that's successfully cured, and it isn't going to cure. And I think that's the other thing that we've got to acknowledge, that there isn't going to be a cure for it. But so I think the challenge of recovery outweighed the pain that I was in day to day, and I've chosen to conservatively manage my condition now and not go down the route of surgery. I will put them up, but there is some research out there around the success of the long-term impacts of having stuff like orthopedic surgery for people that have EDS. And there's complications that can occur. So that's with the fixation failure, if you're having anything, mechanically fixed, excessive bleeding, infection, and reoperation. So really the likelihood is that relief just doesn't last, because the nature of the condition is that your connective tissue is lax and it will become lax, and those things can happen again. And that is kind of where I am. But the acknowledgement and I respect everything that I was offered, and I'm grateful for everything I'm offered, and I'm glad I did everything. I think now I'm a little bit older and I will realise the pros and cons. I go down a different route to manage my condition. You're right. Love you. Little sausage. Mwah, say hi to everyone. Oh, he's a sweetheart. Yes, with my hip pain, it's deep hip pain. It causes subluxations, as I've said before. I feel like it can have some joint instability, limited range of movement. I can become stiff. I can get that nerve pain, sort of feeling like something's trapped. And yeah, sometimes it just doesn't feel right. Like when I walk on it, it just doesn't feel right. And it can take like half a day for it to feel normal. And it's really hard to explain to people, like when you like just you've not done anything, you're just walking down the street, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I can't move. Like that's kind of how it makes me feel. I learned to manage my hip pain through a variety of different things. I don't shy away from pain medication, although I try to reduce the amount of pain meds I use. But I like to do gentle exercise. I think that movement is key. Even moving on days where you don't feel like moving, whether that's big or small, I've talked about it a lot, but I think movement is key. Physiotherapy, I've seen the benefit from, but also weight training, being active, strengthening them joints, them muscles. I think that's why I've taken a real keen interest in personal training, to understand the benefits of targeted and specialist support for people that have chronic pain and that feel uncomfortable or not would shy away from strength, doing some strength training, but those are the people that actually need it. And it's not just necessarily about going behind a barbell and lifting. There's intricacies around strength training. So yeah, I think that's really key. I've done acupuncture before, which is really helpful. But my mindful movement is definitely the biggest thing. And resting without feeling guilty, and what that rest looks like. So I have to sleep on a specific mattress. That's where I get the most amount of relief. It's a Temple mattress. They're so expensive, but I swear it is the best thing that's ever happened to me. I don't feel any pressure when I lie down when my hips are bad. But also other things like a hot water bottle, which I swear by. Heat pack, so heat on sometimes pain when it's just you don't even know what you've done. It's not an injury. It's really helpful. And celebrating small wins and just trying to be as mindful as possible with what my week looks like and if I've had any pain. So, swimming. Forgot my new favourite thing. Love swimming. I feel like that's making a massive difference. It's so good for your body, and it limits. I mean, I've had 2 shoulder injuries actually since I started swimming, but in terms of my hips and the pain in my hips, I would say that it's really helping. So swimming is one, and dynamic stretches. So waking up in the morning, making sure that we're stretching our bodies in the correct way and we're giving ourselves time we're not rushing. The minute I rush around, the more likelihood of an injury and the more likelihood I'm 5 steps back then for the next week. So yeah, rest and careful movement is so important. So the idea is not to put you off from going down sort of any surgical route or medical route. I think for me, I've done that and I'm glad I did, and I did feel listened to, but I think that there's for quality of what I want out of my life, I suppose, I'm not willing to sacrifice putting my body through stuff repeatedly over and over and over again when the same thing keeps happening. So for me, that's what happened. And I do think me seeking out treatment like that was because I wasn't willing to accept and acknowledge my condition, and that it was not getting any better. But I have now accepted and acknowledged my condition, and I'm aware of my limitations, but I push myself as well. And I think that mindset change helped me navigate my course of treatment. And I don't rely at all on medical professionals. I don't see my GP, I don't see a specialist. Sometimes if I've having an acute injury that's not getting any better and I'm concerned, then I will go and obviously access additional services. But other than that, I just want to live a happy, healthy life for me. And what that looks like for me will look like very different for other people. But yeah, I hope it's been useful. I waffle on these videos, but I hope I've kept you interested. And if you have any comments or anything you want to discuss around managing pain or hip pain, then I'm always happy to speak to people and share my experiences. And I'm tired because it's been a busy week. So I'm going to have my tea, and then I will see you next time for next Thoughtful Thursday. Thanks again for listening. Keep rising.